Hello and welcome back to the NMMA. Thank you so much for your patience over the past couple of days as we've gotten the sheet in order and prepared to kick off free agency in earnest. Just as a recap of a couple of the bigger events that have happened since the last time you tuned in. First and foremost, the second cookie prediction has officially fallen. The Sacramento Kings, amazingly, without trading a single pick, moved Alec Burks, Robin Lopez, Antoine Hollins, and Luc Mbah a Moute for not just the predicted Rudy Gay, but also Andrew Bynum and Jared Sullinger to bring into their team. That has significantly raised their ceiling, in my opinion, and we may have a new contending force coming out of the West. Time will tell. Great fit and great move for Malky. Outside of that, the New York Knicks went on a trade flurry during the draft, moving up not just once, but twice in the draft to bring in both Willy Hernangomez and Trey Lyles as a very strong front court building piece for the rebuilding team. And finally, the luck has not run out in Indianapolis. The Pacers jumped yet again, this time not to the coveted pick 1 that they had last season, but to pick 2, and they bring in Karl-Anthony Towns to pair with both Josh Smith and Nikola Jokic. Just an absolutely dominant front court that really could, in a couple of years, end up being the best in the league. So, just a couple of announcements that are important to note before we jump into the actual information of the video. First and foremost, the biggest change that is coming this season, and is going to be the case moving forward, the cap increase that we had this season, moving it up to 83 million plus, is going to be the final cap increase for the rest of the league. We have finished 5 seasons. We're 1/3 of the way done with the league, and you cannot expect that there's going to be another increase to the salary cap for the rest of the league. The reason that's happening is because the game limits how much I can increase the cap in game. So we implemented the sheet in order to be like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't matter. We'll just track it manually and that won't be a problem. However, we came to find that the game also arbitrarily limits how much you can increase a max contract. So if we were to inflate it every year as we had originally intended, at a certain point, the max contract would be representing a smaller and smaller percentage of the total salary cap, which would make it lose all meaning. So to fix that, we've smoothed it just a little bit over the past couple of seasons, and we have reached a sweet spot now with this just over 83 million salary cap value where we do not plan to increase it any further. Now, dovetailing off of that, we've already, starting last season, started to phase out backloaded contracts by having the new default instead of backloaded, where you have a 5% increase to the salary each year, that they're flat, meaning there's no increase. That is going to continue to be the case, where the default contract that is offered to a player when it is not specified is flat as opposed to backloaded. You will still be allowed to offer front-loaded contracts, as many as you want in free agency, but remember, only one front-loaded extension per season. However, a change that we are implementing is that we are going to allow backloaded contracts, however, only in an instance where the GM owns full bird rights for the player. Be very careful with this, because that does mean that you could, in those instances, give a player a contract that will get more expensive with time, even though the salary cap is not going to increase. So be very frugal with when you offer those backloaded contracts to the players that you have full bird rights for. But we still wanted to give some sort of boost for a GM that does have full bird rights in order to be a little bit more competitive in free agency. So big changes. Backloaded contracts allowed for players with full bird rights, and most importantly, the salary cap increase that we just had is going to be the last salary cap increase. Okay, moving on. The deadline is going to be set for Tuesday morning. That's Tuesday, June 11th. So we're going to have a full 48 hours where people can evaluate all the offers here and make sure that they get their offers in. I know we've had a little bit of downtime, and so we want to give ample time for people to prepare for their free agency. The first free agency period, as always, is going to consist of 6 days, and each day you get to offer 3 offers. So make sure to put your most important offers early, and there's going to be 18 total offers that you can submit during this first free agency period. I highly recommend that you use as many of those offers as you can, and please remember to offer to your restricted free agents. Don't just say, oh, match so-and-so, because there's a high chance that somebody's not going to offer a contract to that player, and you want to ensure that you are getting the contract that you want with that player. You're not just beholden to whatever else anybody else offers. Next, make sure to take a look at announcements where I have outlined the amounts for various contracts. That includes minimums, both taxpayer and non-taxpayer mid-level exception contracts, max contracts, rookie scale max contracts, etc. Make sure that you have that all filed away so that you can take that into account whenever you're making your free agency plan and ensure that you know how much of your money you'll have left after you actually sign the players to the offers you're sending out. Next, huge shout out to Shane and to Lockmore for their help with updating sheets. However, I need for you guys to be updating your sheets more frequently, okay? A good half of the league did not update their sheet this time around, and it is a lot of work for us to stay on top of all of that and to audit all of it and make sure that everything is in order. If everybody can just take 15 minutes per season to update their sheet at the end of it, everything is going to run a lot smoother, we'll have fewer delays, and a lot more accuracy. So please be updating your sheet. Finally, make sure that you take a look at Team Chat, where you can see the salary cap space that I have taken from your sheet and posted in there, as well as any sort of cap holds. If you did not respond to how many cap holds you want removed, or you choose to remove more, that is absolutely fine. You can relinquish those at any time, and then that will recalculate your cap space automatically as soon as it's removed from your sheet. So just make sure that you have optimized that so that you know exactly how much cap space you're going to have going into free agency. Okay, so a lot of information. Let's jump into the draft recap. As you can see, the Portland Trailblazers won the lottery and took Kristaps Porzingis #1 overall. It was a very big debate between the two bigs, KP and Karl Anthony Towns at 1 and 2. But Karl Anthony Towns ends up coming to the Indiana Pacers as probably their 4 to play next to Nikola Jokic, kind of similar to the way that the Minnesota Timberwolves in real life have relegated Cat to the 4. Very curious to see how that works and if that fit is going to be immediate or if it's going to take a little bit of time to work out. But the ceiling is sky high for the Indiana Pacers. This was a relatively big letdown of a draft in terms of depth of talent, but once you reach really like pick 15 or so, there are a ton of good players going through the top of the second round. So curious to see how GMs will utilize the role players that were drafted here. And a reveille of an announcement. Sir Richard Bartholomew Holmesington the 14th has officially signed with the New York Knicks. That's right, Richard is back, baby. We're officially kicking off the start of the modern era by bringing him home. And feel free to ping me if you want a breakdown of any of the badges that you can see in the top right your players might have. Okay, so next let's take a look at rosters for attributes. This is up to date with any of the trades that happened during the draft or after. And remember to take the potential rating with a grain of salt. There's always a pretty high likelihood that that potential will range within 1.5 letter grades or so between scouts that different teams have. So it's a good data point, but it is imperfect. TJ McConnell to the Cavaliers, I think, was a great acquisition. Frees up some possibilities for what they might be able to do with Kyle Lowry if they do want to move him. Or as just a backup point guard. I mean, we know how much TJ McConnell can thrive that way. I'm very curious to see if he has a higher ceiling here than he seems to in real life. Oh, and of course, the headlining news that I can't believe I didn't recap before. Alexis Ajinça did opt into his $14 million player option to stay with the Los Angeles Lakers, but much more importantly, Derrick Rose, our reigning MVP, who made it to the finals for the first time this past season, has opted out of his player option with the Denver Nuggets. And as you can see, he is not on this roster. He has entered unrestricted free agency and will be the truly coveted piece that everybody will be bidding on, I'm sure. It's exciting to have both teams at the top of the draft have the good kind of redundancy, where the Blazers have Porzingis as well as Norm Hickman, who both probably thrive most at the four, but are, I think, going to pair very well together considering Porzingis' ability to space, and Jokic and Cat as well. Okay, next we're going to take a look at future draft picks. As always, make sure that you are keeping in mind that any 2016 or 17 picks that say Fighting Irish are actually based on where the Trailblazers fall. So that 2017 pick is based on where the Fighting Irish falls. You can see it's a Fighting Irish pick. And vice versa. Starting in 2018, so we just have 2 more drafts of this confusion, the names will be rematched, and so there won't be an issue. A lot of future picks for the Supersonics. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at remaining cap holds. So you can see where your paths to having more cap space may exist. And now we're going to take a look at roster space. So make sure to look below this red square. You can see players in the bottom left. Make sure that that number at the end of the second free agency period, so not this, is most importantly below 15. If it is below 12, then 2K will automatically sign players for you, but that isn't that big of a deal. The bigger problem is that if it is above 15, 2K is going to automatically choose which of your players to cut, and you do not want that to happen, as it may choose a younger player that you want to hold on to just because he's lower overall. So make sure to not exceed 15. You can do that during free agency, but just let me know who you want to cut before we actually progress to the start of the season. Thus far, it seems like I've only seen one team that is already at that 15 cap and nobody is above. But a lot of teams very, very low, and so I'm sure that we're going to be seeing a ton of offers extended. Yeah, look at that. The Phoenix Suns have only 5 players signed on their cap table. Absolutely crazy. Okay, 16. We do have one team that is already over that 15 cap, so Axel will need to be cutting somebody. All right, now let's take a look at cap tables. Let me make sure that the salary cap is turned off. please be keeping track of any dead cap that is bugged out in 2K and you shouldn't actually have. If you can show me evidence of that, then I can remove it in your sheet and it won't count against you at all. Yeah, after losing Tim Duncan to retirement, the Fighting Irish have a very eventful offseason ahead of them. They do hold the bird rights on Amari Stoudemire, but I do believe that he is an unrestricted free agent, as we will see soon. So very curious to see what Locke does to retain him and generally steer them back towards a deep playoff run. They took the eventual champion Orlando Magic to 7 games. Frankly, put on the best show against them of the entire playoffs. When you got Chris Paul and LeBron James, though, I think there's plenty of ways to build that team and be extremely competitive. Big shout out to the new owners of the Dallas Mavericks. We've got Wangos working with Szarnacki. Real dream team there with Rusty as an AGM, but still a very active consultant for the team. They drafted Devin Booker as well as several other very good players in this draft and are looking at a bright future ahead of them. Remember to be going off what the sheet says your actual team salary total is, because the team salary total that you'll see in the top left here is oftentimes bugged based on cap holds and just general 2K bugs. This is just used so that you have an easy view of your cap table with all of these salaries that will be, coming into effect in the future, and so that you can update your own sheet. But we're going to be using the sheets calculator to actually derive your cap space as always. Okay, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's jump into free agency and see who is available. Of course, leading the pack here, Derrick Rose, our reigning MVP, is the most sought after free agent around. However, Rajon Rondo and Amari Stoudemire are no slumps here, both over 90 overalls. Brook Lopez, DeAndre Jordan, Andre Iguodala, Carlos Boozer. We have a very deep free agent class at the top here. So I'm going to start off by just scrolling through each of the players by overall. So you can see generally where different players rank. And we'll go through about 72 overalls. Okay. Next, we're going to sort it by age. And as always, I'm first going to go down, just showing it this way. So you can see some of the youngest players that are available. And then we will scroll up, going all the way over to the right, so you can see potential grade as well as the rest of their attributes. We'll go through 23-year-olds. Okay. Scroll all the way over there and go all the way to the top. Okay. Now let's take a look at each of the players by position. So starting on the point guards, of course, Rose and Rondo leading the pack. Manu Ginobili, who has been classified as a point guard because of the position he played with the Heat, is next up there. But plenty of good, more mid players too. Reggie Jackson, Chauncey Billups. A lot of serviceable guards here. We'll go down to 70 overalls for each of the positions, through 70 overalls. For shooting guards, we have Iggy leading the pack, two-time champion, followed by Devin Harris and OJ Mayo, both coming off of struggling teams who may or may not want to retain them. For small forwards, Tobias Harris is a restricted free agent who I absolutely expect the Spurs will want to retain. So kind of a weaker class there, but Daquan Cook, Julian Wright, both very good players. I think we're entering that era of extreme scarcity at the small forward position. The middle of 2010s are famous for being played by that. At least until players like, Tatum and Brown, etc., get some prog time in. For power forwards, we have Carlos Boozer and Kevin Garnett. Older vets leading the way for power forwards. Chris Humphries, who went, I think, all of last season without being signed. Followed by Derek Williams, who I think is a restricted free agent. Big shout out, Big Darko here. A lot of fun players, Lamar Odom. And last but not least, centers. Of course, Amari Stoudemire, Brook Lopez, DeAndre Jordan leading the pack here. J.J. Hickson, Varejao, Mozgov, Mahinmi, Ed Davis, Chris Kaman. A lot of really good serviceable centers, especially if you have the rest of your team already locked in. Okay. And finally, I'm going to show contract extension options. Remember that you only get one contract extension for any non-rookie during the offseason, so make sure to use that wisely. But any rookie who is available to be extended, which means that they have to be falling between their third and fourth year of the rookie contract, those can be extended without any sort of restriction. Remember, be very careful if you do want to offer a backloaded extension to someone. First of all, it's probably not going to be necessary if they're willing to extend. Pretty high likelihood that you can get them to extend on a flat contract for just a little bit more money, which is usually going to be more worth it. But if you do want to offer a backloaded contract, be very careful to make sure that you don't set yourself up to be in cap hell in the future when the cap does not increase, but the player's contract continues to. Anthony Davis willing to extend for the Hawks. That's huge for them. Andrew Bynum willing to extend for the Kings after just being acquired. It's a good sign for the franchise. Kobe for the Lakers. The Lakers core is getting up there, but they're still a very competitive playoff team. I feel like they probably have one or two more seasons left in them. Curry willing to extend for under a max. That's big for the Nugs. The Nugs beating the Rockets in 6 in the playoffs. Huge, huge victory for them. Unfortunately, couldn't pull it off against the Magic. But we had an incredible 7-game series that unfortunately ended in a blowout, as too many 7-game series seemed to last playoffs. a lot of the Spurs core. It's big news for Wabby. D-Wade willing to extend for the Suns. Kendall Marshall, too. Two of the top 4 clutch players of the year last year. Kendall Marshall, off of his Most Improved Player campaign, had an incredible season, especially for his size, getting 1.2 blocks per game, all the rebounds that he does. Very impressive stuff. Hey, Thomas Robinson, Darren Collison, these are important extensions for the Wizards as well. Okay, that'll about do it. So you'll have 2 days, Tuesday morning. Remember, you get 18 total offers. Happy signing.